11 Most Evil Children Who Murdered Their Parents. The birth of a loving child is one of the most joyful moments in the life of parents. It's like they contemplate the continuity of their own life in the innocent smile of the newborn. But for some parents, they give birth to their own killer. In this video, you will discover 11 evil children who murdered their own parents mercilessly, in the most shocking way. But before we proceed, kindly like the video and subscribe to the channel to help us establish our presence on YouTube. Here are 11 most evil children who ever inhabited the earth. 1. Christopher Porco, born July 9, 1983. Christopher Porco is a convicted murderer currently imprisoned for killing his father and second-degree attempted murder in the severe wounding and disfigurement of his mother with a fireman's axe. Although she survived the attack November 15, 2004, Joan, Christopher's mother, spent some time in a coma and has lost her left eye and a portion of her skull. The case against Porco received extensive coverage in local newspapers, including the Times-Union and Spotlight newspapers. The case was also the subject of a one-hour documentary on 48 Hours Mystery entitled Memory of Murder, broadcast by CBS, True TV, and Forensic Files. On December 12, 2006, Judge Jeffrey Berry sentenced Porco to 50 years to life on each count, totaling a minimum of 50 years in prison. Judge Berry was quoted as saying, "I fear very much what happened in the early morning hours of November 15th is something that could happen again." 2. Broken Arrow Killings. On July 22nd to 23rd, 2015, 5 members of the Beaver family were murdered in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. 2 members of the family, a 2-year-old girl and a 13-year-old girl, survived, the latter of whom identified 2 of her brothers, Robert Beaver, 18, and Michael Beaver, 16, as the assailants. 5 people were killed in the familicide, and 1 other person was injured. The victims were identified as David Beaver, 52, father, killed by at least 28 stab wounds; April Beaver, 44, mother, killed by blunt force trauma and more than 48 wounds; Daniel Beaver, 12, son, killed by 9 stab wounds; Christopher Beaver, 7, son, killed by 6 stab wounds; Victoria Beaver, 5, daughter, killed by 18 stab wounds. At around 11:30 p.m. on July 22, 2015, police were alerted to 709 Magnolia Court by a 911 phone call made by 12-year-old Daniel Beaver, who stated his brother was attacking the family. Dispatchers tracked the address by searching the number and got to the scene. In 2018, the brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment, Robert Beaver without the possibility of parole, and Michael Beaver with the possibility of parole. 3. Brian Mark Blackwell, born in 1986 in West Lancashire. Brian Mark Blackwell is a heartless murderer from England. On July 25, 2004, he killed his parents, 72-year-old Sydney and 61-year-old Jacqueline, at their home in Melling, England. He killed them after they became suspicious about his increasingly lavish lifestyle and began asking questions about it. After the killing, medical experts diagnosed Blackwell as having narcissistic personality disorder, which is characterized by extreme feelings of self-importance, a high need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Blackwell was charged with murder and was due to stand trial with possibility of death sentence. However, that charge was dropped due to his diagnosis, narcissistic personality disorder. At the end, he was sentenced to life imprisonment on June 29, 2005. 4. David Brom, born October 3, 1971. David Brom is an American mass murderer. He killed his parents, brother, and sister with an axe on February 1988 near Rochester, Minnesota. All 4 individuals had sustained numerous gashes in the head and upper body. In the early evening of February 18, 1988, Olmsted County Sheriff deputies discovered the bodies of Bernard, 43, Paulette, 42, Diane, 13, and Richard Brom, 11, in the Brom family home. Police found a blood-stained axe in the basement, which was used to kill all 4 victims. Brahm was captured on February 19, 1988, while using a payphone near the local post office. On October 16, 1989, he was convicted of first-degree murder and was given 3 consecutive life sentences. He will be eligible for release in 2041. 5. Jean-Claude Romand, born February 11, 1954. Jean-Claude is a French spree killer and imposter who pretended to be a medical doctor for 18 years before killing his wife, children, and his parents when he was about to be exposed. On January 9, 1993, Romand withdrew 2,000 francs and borrowed a .22 caliber long rifle from his father, for which he'd purchased a suppressor and gas canisters, and asked for them to be gift-wrapped. That night he beat his wife to death on the couple's double bed with a rolling pin. He left her body until the morning, sleeping as normal. The next morning he woke his children, had breakfast, and watched cartoons. He put them to bed that night and, once they had fallen asleep, shot them both in the head. After these killings, the only people who could expose him were his parents and ex-mistress, who wanted back 900,000 francs she had given him as a favor. The next morning, Romand traveled to his parents' house where he joined them for a meal. Immediately after the meal, he repeatedly shot both of them and the family dog. That night he picked up his ex-mistress, telling her they were invited to a dinner with the then health minister, Bernard Kouchner. Pretending that they were lost, he made her exit the car, and as she did so, he attempted to strangle her with a cord and sprayed tear gas into her face. After she fought back, he apologized and drove her back to her home, after making her promise to never tell anyone about his attempt to murder her. He then returned to his family home, which still contained the bodies of his dead wife and children. He sat and watched TV before he poured petrol around the house, set it on fire, and took an overdose of sleeping pills to create the appearance of an intended suicide. On July 6, 1996, Romand was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 22 years. He became eligible for parole in 2015. The appeals court in Bourges granted Romand a parole in 2019, after he had been imprisoned for 26 years. He was given to the custody of a nearby Benedictine monastery and had an electronic bracelet placed on him to ensure he did not try to escape. Romand is reputed to suffer from narcissistic personality disorder. 6. Suzanne Louise von Richthofen, born November 3, 1983. Suzanne is a Brazilian who was convicted of murdering her parents on October 31, 2002, with the help of her boyfriend and his brother. She was put on trial in Sao Paulo in 2006 July and was sentenced to 40 years in prison. In the late hours of October 31, 2002, Suzanne, who had planned the murder of her parents for months, checked if they were already asleep, then disconnected the alarm system of the estate and opened the door to her 21-year-old boyfriend, Daniel Cravinhos, and his brother, 26-year-old Christian Cravinhos, who had been waiting outside. The Cravinhos brothers went upstairs to the parents' bedroom and hit them with iron bars before strangling them with towels. Suzanne was waiting in the living room downstairs. On June 5, 2006, Suzanne, along with the Cravinhos brothers, was put on trial in Sao Paulo for homicidio qualificado, the equivalent of first-degree murder in Brazilian law. The trial was delayed and finally started on July 17th. On trial, Suzanne blamed Daniel Cravinhos for everything, while the Cravinhos brothers claimed that they acted on her wishes. Prosecutor Roberto Tardelli, however, called Suzanne the mastermind of the crime. Roberto Tardelli called for 50 years imprisonment for each of the 3 defendants. Suzanne was described as a personification of the evil blonde. On July 22, 2006, Suzanne was sentenced to 40 years in prison for the crime. Daniel Cravinhos got the same sentence, and his brother Christian was sentenced to 38 years for conspiracy. 7. Seth Gonzalez, born September 16, 1980. Gonzalez is a Filipino-Australian who was convicted and sentenced in the Supreme Court of New South Wales to life imprisonment for the July 2001 murder of his father, Teddy Gonzalez, age 46, and his mother, Mary Loiva Gonzalez, age 43, and his sister, Claudine Gonzalez, age 18, in Sydney, Australia. On July 10, 2001, at about 4 p.m., Gonzalez left the family's new firm, where he worked part-time, and headed to the family home. Around 4:30 p.m., armed with a baseball bat from his car and with 2 kitchen knives from a knife block in the kitchen, he entered Claudine's bedroom and assaulted her while she was studying. There he compressed her neck while trying to strangle her, struck her head with the bat at least 6 times, and then stabbed her multiple times with the smaller of the knives. Gonzalez then waited until Loiva arrived at home at about 5:30 p.m. After entering the house, Gonzalez attacked her with one of the kitchen knives in the dining room. Gonzalez inflicted multiple stab wounds and cuts to her face, neck, chest, and abdomen. Teddy then arrived home at about 6:50 p.m. After entering the house, Gonzalez attacked him with one of the kitchen knives and inflicted multiple stab wounds to his neck, chest, back, and abdomen. One of the stab wounds penetrated his right lung, another penetrated his heart, and another partially severed his spinal cord. On May 20, 2004, Gonzalez was found guilty of all 4 charges. He was sentenced on September 17, 2004, to 3 concurrent life sentences without parole for the murders. 8. Andrew Wamsley, born July 7, 1984. Andrew Wamsley is a criminal from Texas who murdered his parents, Rick and Susanna Wamsley, on December 11, 2003. Along with his girlfriend Chelsea Richardson and friend Susanna, he shot and stabbed the victims to death in their home. The murders were part of a scheme orchestrated by Andrew Wamsley and his team to collect on his parents' $1.65 million estate. The 3 conspirators also wanted to kill Andrew's older sister Sarah, but she was not home at the night of the murders. Andrew Wamsley was convicted of capital murder on March 5, 2006. Although he faced the death penalty, jurors did not view Andrew as a future danger to society and sentenced him to life in prison. He is now serving his sentence at the John B. Connolly Unit in Kennedy, Texas. 9. Seth Privacki, June 2, 1980 to July 15, 2010. Seth Privacki was an American mass murderer who was convicted of 5 counts of murder at the age of 18 for the shooting of his parents, brother's girlfriend, and his grandfather in Muskegon, Michigan on November 29, 1998. On November 29, 1988, the Privacki family was getting together for a Thanksgiving dinner. While 19-year-old Jed Privacki was watching television, Seth grabbed their father's .22 caliber Ruger and shot him. When Seth's father and grandfather returned home, he fatally welcomed both of them. His mother shot dead while getting out of the shower. Jed's girlfriend, April Boss, was also killed after she showed up unexpectedly and saw Seth handling the bodies. Seth Privacki was convicted on 5 counts of murder and given a life sentence. But on July 15, 2010, while in prison, Privacki and 2 other inmates overpowered the driver of a facility semi-truck at around 9:10 a.m. and tried to drive it through the double fence. Guards quickly apprehended 2 of the inmates, but Privacki tried to flee the truck once it stopped and was fatally shot. 10. Ashton Sachs. Ashton Sachs is a California teenager who deliberately shot to death his parents, Andrea, 54, and Brad, 57, in their sleep in February 2014. He also shot Landon, 8, although survived but who is now paralyzed. Sachs remained free of charges until a month later after the killings. Investigators didn't initially suspect him because his parents had a long list of enemies and were the frequent subjects of lawsuits. The parents were business partners who owned several homes in Mexico and the U.S. Ashton confessed to the killings and told police he suffered from a lot of problems. He also said he plotted the killings for days before the February 9th shootings. He wanted his parents to die for everything he felt. Ashton is being held in solitary confinement at the Orange County Central Men's Jail. Prosecutors have not said whether they will ask for the death penalty. 11. Lowell Lee Andrews, 1939 or 1940 to November 30th, 1962. Lowell Lee Andrews was a sophomore in the University of Kansas, zoology major, who played bassoon in the college band. He was convicted of the murders of his parents and his sister on November 28, 1958. Andrews' sister Jeannie Marie and his parents were watching TV while Andrews was upstairs reading the Brothers Karamazov. When finished, he shaved, put on a suit, and went downstairs carrying a .22 caliber rifle and a revolver. He shot his sister, Jeannie Marie, 20, between the eyes, killing her instantly. He then turned the gun on his parents, shooting his father, William, 50, twice, and mother, Opal, 41, 3 times. His mother moved towards him and he shot her another 3 times. His father attempted to crawl to the kitchen and was shot repeatedly with the revolver. Andrews fired a total of 17 shots into his father. Andrews pleaded by reason of insanity but was convicted and sentenced to death. Despite appeals, the U.S. Supreme Court let the conviction stand, and the state of Kansas executed Andrews by hanging on November 30, 1962, at the age of 22. He gave no last words. Thank you for watching till the end. Please like the video and share it with your friends. Remember to subscribe to the channel to help us establish our presence on YouTube.